the engine room. Party in the engine room. Party in the engine room. Party in the engine room. So now we say, guys, party in the engine room. WEFM, the new fresh sound.
WhatsApp us or call us at 457-9997. Activated Mornings on WEFM 99.9 is on now.
Alrighty, so we are back with you for another commentary segment on today's Activated Mornings program. In studio, you have Dianna, Cain, myself, Roleza, Samuel, and of course, the Honorable Dr. Gerald Thompson. Yeah, you're not going to keep saying it. Morning, Doc, how are you?
Oh, thank you very much.
You're honored to be honored?
I'm honored. I'm protected.
Come in closer.
Well, you know, you've made my day. Really, you put a nice smile on my face. Thank you very much. Maybe that Dianna doesn't feel that way.
She doesn't feel honored?
It's just from one of you, it's enough. Thank you. I mean, I don't need to say anything more for the program.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How was your weekend?
My weekend was nice. It's great. Lots of
It was nice, great, and wonderful.
No, I don't use that. I don't use those.
You can't say that, you know, Doc.
I could say that, but
it's not that difficult to say.
cliche, and so forth. You know, I mean, it was nice. It was okay. It was a good weekend.
Boy, it's pulling teeth out of you sometimes, eh?
No, you see, I could come and tell you when there's a wonderful weekend.
Yeah, but you could
wonderful.
You could string it along. If it was nice.
If I would come every Monday and say my weekend was nice, great, and wonderful, nice, great, and wonderful, and so forth.
No, you could say it this morning because you know the past weekend probably was nice, great, and wonderful. You could say it today, Doc.
There have been others that have been even far better, but it's good. So I'm expressing. I'm giving it a level. And I think people don't understand what I'm talking about. You have to raise a rag and a flag for every single weekend, and so you know what I'm saying? Yeah, yes.
Could have raised the flag for this weekend.
Huh?
You could have raised the flag for this weekend because it probably was a nice, great, and wonderful weekend. Shouldn't be difficult to say, Doc. Come on, you could do it.
Probably even was a little.
You could do it, Doc.
You say it was nice.
It was great. Let's go. Let me go.
It was fine. It was not wonderful. When I come back next week or next 2 weeks.
Ask you the same question?
Then ask me the same question. I'll give you the different levels up and down, you know, in terms of.
Folks, you see what we had to put up with? Oh, Lord, that be difficult. All right, so let's quickly head into a story at this time, all right? And we're asking the question, are persons afraid to travel? More so those persons who are coming out of the U.S., all right? So we know that recently, reading this one from St. Vincent Times, that the government, as in SVG's government, is monitoring a case of a detained Vincentian national in the U.S. So last Wednesday, PM Gonsalves indicated that he is closely monitoring or observing the situation concerning a 44-year-old Vincentian national currently in custody at ICE. So the individual whose heritage has been held, the individual of Vincentian heritage has held a green card for more than 25 years and has been reported to be in detention due to criminal charge that was filed against him 19 years prior for the possession of marijuana. All right. So the PM said he's following up on the case of the Vincentian who's detained by ICE. On Tuesday, he spoke with, which is last Tuesday, the Consulate General about him and have now gotten numbers for him and his lawyer. All right. So we're looking at this particular situation because this person has been living in the U.S., I think, he's been a green card holder for 25 years. So in essence, we could note that he left SVG at a very young age. So for the most part, he is going to call the U.S. home. All right. Now, came across another article yesterday where it says that the US to miss out on billions on Trump's policies as Trump's policies deter overseas tourists. All right. So they're saying, it's saying every summer Cheryl travels to Iowa from her home in St. Kitts. She rents a 3-bedroom house for her and her US-based adult children. She usually rents a car too, and the family go out to dinners and explore local attractions. Cheryl typically spends $10,000 on the trip, but it's not happening this year. All right, so they're saying that the number of overseas visitors to the US have dropped by 11.6% in March compared with the previous year, including 17.2% decline in people traveling from Western Europe, according to US government data. Now, this second story that I'm reading is from The Guardian. All right. So we're looking at this, and initially when this story broke, not in last week's newspaper, the week before, when I saw this particular story of the Vincentian who is being detained by ICE, I have to question, I wonder how many persons might be out there right now afraid to travel, even though they have a green card, afraid to travel, afraid to leave the US because they're not sure if they're able to go back into the country. And on top of that, is the US going to end up not having as many travelers because of the restrictions that have been put in place by the Trump administration, who I think incidentally he'll be celebrating or acknowledging his 100th day in office tomorrow. All right. So that is just something there of interest. Do you think that there is going to be a decline in travelers to the US and more so persons, especially of Caribbean descent or West Indians, who might be afraid to leave the US because they're not sure if they're going to get to go back in?
I definitely feel as though some persons are afraid, because when I saw that, the same thing crossed my mind, because I was thinking, imagine you've been living here for so long, you already have what is supposed to be the safety key, that thing that should keep you there, and then here you end up in a situation where you're now being held because of something from before, even though you thought that you were safe. And I do believe that there are persons who are afraid. There will be persons who are afraid to travel because of this, because I, for one, would have been considering this, because you never know, especially if you have some old thing from before that may come up, which is what happened
And it
to
might
him.
be something that you've forgotten as well, too.
Yeah. So I definitely think that they're having... Funnily enough, I heard somebody tell me I just learned about a situation in the UK with some nationals as well, where they're experiencing some sort of similar problem, but Google is not giving me what I'm trying to find, but somebody who lives there was sharing it with me. So I definitely think that they have this fear. Interestingly enough as well, there are some Americans that are afraid of traveling because they are afraid of what their government is doing. They think that whoever they go, the persons, they might be taken advantage of because of their government, what their government is doing. So,
Doc, your thoughts?
Yes, this is, you shared an article that really brought out a number of figures that has shown significant drops in visitors, really from all over the world, but predominantly from Europe, from Canada, and that the United States probably is the destination that has one of the largest flow of tourism. When I asked about this, Trump has expressed he doesn't care. But there are some areas, I was listening even this morning, that the number of Canadians that have summer homes in Arizona and certain other places, I'm not sure they've reached a stage where they're going to sell their summer homes and so, but that they're not going, they're not traveling. But with respect to West Indians, this is something that's there. Now, a number of people do have some minor infractions, and with increased computerization now, linking the states. And so if you are now living in New York, but you once lived in Texas, then they are pulling up the issues you may have had there, if they were unresolved, or if it's a mistake, or if you have a similar name to someone else. In this case, marijuana, Texas is one of those states that is not legalized even for, certainly they've not legalized for full recreational purposes. And in a number of states that had legalized, the police were tough catching up. I did a lecture last year, the end of last year, to a Caribbean grouping, talking about the number of states, especially Virginia and so, that still has a record amount of arrest of Black individuals for marijuana compared to white. And this was something that was brought up. And so that isn't the main point here, but I want to highlight it. But yes, I think that people are going to be apprehensive about traveling to the United States just because they are just not sure. They don't want to find themselves in a situation that they're carted off to El Salvador where the key's thrown away and that somebody is being paid to house you in a deplorable condition for the rest of your life because there is no way of you coming out.
And no real efforts of any of the governments to get you out.
so that if there was a minor infraction such as possession of marijuana, which would have been in some cases a misdemeanor or something like that or so, that they are going to imprison you for the rest of your life for that. As a medical doctor, I used to, when I lived in New Jersey, I used to visit a detention center. They employed me to go and see patients, especially West Indian patients. I remember I used to go up and see them. But there was one patient of mine who had a minor altercation with his wife. And you know what usually happens? Wife calls the police. The police think they know the matter could be settled, but what they do, they basically dig a little deeper and find that the individual was undocumented, or if he had hit her. So he found himself he had such brittle hypertension, and he would call me from prison and say, "Doc, they're not giving me my proper medication. They're not giving you help." He was crying for help from me. That individual died there. I'm telling you. And it's something that hits me so hard that even back then, I'm talking about the 90s, so I can imagine what's taking place. So taking a little long going through this, but it's a serious matter at all levels. Sometimes you don't really know if you've had some old parking tickets and so that because the lights picked you up here and so forth, so there's something out for you, and it's a great concern.
Yeah. And I think one of the things too that we have to look at is, would this maybe affect how many persons are coming home for certain festivities that we have? Let's say Carnival, at Christmas time, maybe even Independence celebrations. Is it going to affect the returning nationals in terms of the number of persons coming back? Would this have a significant impact?
In two ways, they say. They say that also that the increased prices that are now taking place in the US, even though there's been some hoarding and people bought up a whole set of stuff in advance, in anticipation of this, that the increased prices, the disposable income, people would think twice.
I'm wondering if I could
travel this year. But that's for a host of other things. It's not just coming to St. Vincy, it's going elsewhere, going, to a lot of other places, and from many, many different nationalities.
Yeah, so I guess we would have to wait and see. But just a few things that I came across in the newspaper from last week. So the U.S. nationals need a visa now to travel to Brazil, but it's not just applied to U.S. nationals. It's also for persons from Australia and Canada. So now U.S. nationals need to have a visa to travel to Brazil. Namibia has also imposed a visa requirements on U.S. citizens. This more has to do with persons who are there who were mining in the diamonds and the gold, uranium, copper, and etc. Those fields. The Namibian government has started to put their foot down because they figure that these nationals have been exploiting. The U.S. nationals have been exploiting the country. So now they are asking that U.S. citizens have a visa to go to them. And another thing to note as well, so persons living in the U.S. illegally are being asked to register with the federal government. All right, so this is also another thing that is being imposed, and I'm curious as to note if how effective this in particular will be, because if I'm already in a country legally and given what is happening, would I actually come forward to be registered? You know, so it will be interesting to see. We are living in interesting times, but we just have to wait and see how some of these measures that have been put in place, how it is that they are going to affect us here in the region, especially given that, we do depend a lot on remittances. And as, of course, when it comes to national festivities and activities, that foreign dollar coming here to support our annual activities as well. So it would be interesting to see what happens there. All right. And with that, we are going to head on out of this segment as we are going to get into our courts desk for today.